what resources are available, tools or opportunities for women to become more involved in natural and cultural resource management. We think is really important is cultural knowledge transference. We see that women are the ones that hold a lot of knowledge about plants and animals, about women's business and appropriate ways of using some of the resources for community activities. We developed the New South Wales ACT Aboriginal Women's Natural and Cultural Resource Management Network, which is quite a mouthful, but it tells you what our business is about. So 8 volunteers, we sought funding. We've got a small grant of $20,000 to have our first conference in 2009, which we thought was a great success. We had 140 Aboriginal women attend that conference at Nelson Bay, which is over on the coast. In September 2012 we had our second conference, and it was really significant for me and my people, the Walwyn people, because we were co-hosting this conference on our lands with the Women's Network. The Macquarie Marshes wetland is significant because it's a wetland in the middle of a lot of agriculture. There's grazing, there's cotton farming, and it's protected on a nature reserve by national parks, which restricts people's access to this wetland. It's a Ramsar wetland. It has colonial birds that fly in and nest or breed or come for food from China and Japan, as well as from all around Australia. We have these birds coming in. It's also very significant for the local native plants and animals as well, because it's a sanctuary where they can breed and have their fledgling safe there until it's time for them to move on. And culturally it's very significant for us because it's in the heart of our country. It's part of our dreaming. We told a dreaming story about how the wetlands were created. That was an important part of sharing our story with the ladies that attended that conference, and it made us feel proud that others were interested in that and could see that we have a passion for wanting to be part of protecting that land and those waters. So the women were coming to a wetland that had been highly prized for its environmental and ecological and natural values, but there are also a lot of cultural values in there. Some of the highlights of the 3-day conference included having cultural activities such as cultural tours, walking into the wetland, harvesting the natural resources like the sedge to do the weaving. And so a lot of ladies had different styles of weaving, and even the most experienced weaver, she said, I've been doing this for years, but I've learnt something new here, a different style of weaving. She was so excited. That ability to sit down and learn from watching and teach by doing is really something that I think is just as important as speaking about things, because it's a building of relationships. You share more than just, knit one, purl one, or whatever it might be. There's the conversations, there's a connection, there's a network there, and that's really significant. This conference allowed for downtime for the ladies. I mean, they're so busy, they've got families, they've got communities, they've got jobs, and so some of them came just to have a better respite. A fantastic highlight was the guest speakers coming and sharing their story about how they achieved native title on their lands up near Byron Bay, the joint management arrangements they have with national parks or the federal government through Indigenous protected areas, how they protect cultural heritage across the state, and also how women in New South Wales also have a voice in the national forum through the Indigenous Advisory Group that is sponsored or hosted by the Federal Department of Environment. I think a highlight for me and for my community, the Walwyn people, was the event at the Beemunnel, which is our old Aboriginal reserve we now own. We then planted lamandra, which is a long strappy flax plant, to be able to use that for weaving ourselves later on. and also planted trees significant to the riparian area that our mission area covers. And we planted 200 trees with the ladies, and they're a reminder of us of the support we got during this conference, but also communities working together. And the community was so excited. They were just over the moon to see that people actually valued their knowledge about country, the events that happen, and what their aspirations are for the future. Being a bit of a bushie myself and growing up in the bush, I was quite surprised. There were a few younger ones and older ladies too who live in more larger communities, in cities or, you know, bigger towns, and they don't often get to go in the bush. So they didn't know some things I thought everyone knew, like making johnny cakes and cooking on the ashes and, you know, in a camp oven. Or we were so lucky, a group of Aboriginal men from Warren, our cultural brothers, came over and they dug a hole and cooked an emu in a hole for us, and that was a very big highlight for all of us that were there on the last night. And the women were just overwhelmed. It was, you know, it was fantastic to see. So those cultural activities, I think, help make all that we're trying to achieve. Those activities helped us to remind us what is important. It helped us to remind us of what we need to pass on to our kids, and it gave us determination to say that we will be engaged, we will fight to be part of decision making and planning for country. And, you know, it's inspired a lot of communities to run their own workshops, but also to maybe even try and put in and get some of their own lands back. A really important aspect of our women's network and our activities that we do is sharing and mentoring, sharing knowledge about processes and procedures as well. So we have the Aboriginal Women's Working Group. During our conference, we have called for nominations for new members to come in. The opportunities for new members to come on is really important. We hope to have a new working group ready for 2014. We're calling for younger ladies to come in and work, and so we can share our knowledge about event coordination and, you know, facilitation, and how do you facilitate a workshop during the conference, and how do you run meetings and put agendas together and itineraries. Overwhelmingly, the women said they want the next conference to be camping out again. So we've also called for nominations from other communities around the state to nominate and address criteria like, if we have an event there, we'd like the opportunity to go on a field trip, be able to help you in some way fulfil a natural resource management project, to be part of that, to have infrastructure or the ability to hire that in, to have, number one is the support of your own community to have permissions to have this on their lands. Support of other organisations that you can call in for favours. We had fantastic support from the Macquarie Local Aboriginal Land Council and the Whalewin Elders Group. We also had support from national parks, the Federal Department of Environment, the catchment management authorities, the local government, the water managers, our neighbours to national parks. So I called upon a neighbour to bring in, could we borrow 2 jerry cans, and he even gave us diesel. Like, you know, those things are small things, but they're very important when you're running an event, that you know that you've got heaps of support. It keeps you going, and it shows the women that you can do so much with so little. We only had a $20,000 grant. We got 140 women, 150 women to our conference. We hired all this equipment, and we had a fantastic time, and we achieved everything that we set out to achieve.